November 1957. In Wisconsin, USA, the police found a headless female corpse on a remote farm. Her intestines had been entirely removed. Her head was placed in a pot of boiling water. Looking around, almost all the furniture was made from human remains. The head in the pot served as a lampshade. Today we'll discuss the prototype who inspired countless horror films, Ed Gein. If you haven't heard of Ed Gein, you probably know the chainsaw-wielding killer in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre wearing a human skin coat, or the creepy lead in Psycho, or the terrifying man in The Silence of the Lambs wearing human skin. All these images were inspired by Ed Gein. It's no exaggeration that what Ed Gein did in history was far more horrifying than in movies. On August 27, 1906, Gein was born in a small town of just over 800 residents. He lived on an isolated farm far from town. His father was a heavy drinker, often passed out from alcohol. His mother was a particularly fanatical religious zealot and exhibited abusive tendencies. From a young age, his mother was very strict with the two brothers. She didn't allow them to go out or interact with anyone, especially women. His mother even said that approaching any woman was akin to approaching the devil. Time passed slowly. Gein thought that when he reached school age, he could freely make friends. But when he started school, his mother still forbade him from making friends. Thus, Gein, who had developed learning difficulties since childhood, suffered from even more severe mental illness without the chance to make friends or even talk to anyone. In 1940, Gein's father passed away first. 4 years later, his brother died in a mysterious fire. Rumor had it that his brother Henry always tried to protect Gein, often rebelling against their mother for Gein's sake. Therefore, there were rumors that the fire was a punishment from their mother for Henry's disobedience. However, this claim has never been confirmed. After the deaths of his father and brother, his mother suffered a stroke in 1945 and eventually died at home. After his mother passed away, 39-year-old Gein was devastated. He even began to behave in ways that were hard to understand. He placed his mother's corpse by the window. Then he sealed his mother's room without changing anything. He only left the kitchen and his own bedroom for movement. An expert explained that Gein did this to make the house look like his mother was still there. After his mother passed away, Gein started madly bringing things home. He would collect everything others discarded. He treasured them like gems. He even collected discarded dentures and chewed gum in his home. Years later, Gein's house had turned into a massive junkyard. After collecting countless pieces of garbage, Gein looked at his house full of collectibles and suddenly had an idea. Could I assemble my own mother from other people's bodies? So Gein began to dig up graves. He searched for fresh corpses resembling his mother. He needed bodies with similar structures to provide materials for his experiment. During this time, he immersed himself in reading medical books daily. He also developed great curiosity about the female body. Slowly, he became fascinated with books on Nazi experiments on Jews. In these books, Gein learned extensively about human experimentation. Gradually, Gein's desire shifted from assembling a mother to transforming into a woman himself. Of course, neither of these ideas ever came to fruition. From 1947 to 1954, Gein exhumed about 40 graves. Some bodies he took intact, while others were just quality organs. Sometimes Gein would carefully dismember bodies and pack them in his freezer for later use. When hungry, he would cook and eat the human meat. In The Silence of the Lambs, a coat appears. In reality, this coat was made from the skins of many different women's bodies. On every full moon night, Gein would take out this coat and dance in the moonlight, imagining he was close to his mother and envisioning himself as a woman. In fact, Gein did dig up his mother's grave, but the coffin was too strong, and he couldn't open it. Frustration drove him to repeatedly excavate others' graves to fill this void. So, the true number of people Gein killed remains unknown. No one knows which of his human skin furniture he killed for and which were exhumed. Until December 8, 1945, Gein committed the first recorded murder. His first victim was bar owner Mary Hogan. while the whole town discussed Mary's disappearance. Some people had heard Gein jokingly claim that Mary was inside his cabin, but back then, no one believed him. Everyone thought Gein was just a madman, and everything he said was crazy. Until November 16, 1957. Another hardware store owner's wife went missing. When police investigated Gein's messy cabin, they found the skin of Mary, who had been missing for 3 years, under a hidden lid. You might wonder why police traced Gein if everyone thought he was mad. The breakthrough was that the hardware store owner's son was the local deputy sheriff. He noticed many suspicious details at the crime scene. The sheriff saw that the hardware store's door was locked. If it had been a robbery or murder, there would be signs of forced entry. Thus, he deduced it must be a case committed by someone known. He recalled that the day before the incident, a man named Gein had come into their store, and the last transaction at the store was also from Gein. With this in mind, the sheriff had a sudden realization. He remembered what happened just 2 days prior. Gein once came to the store and kept asking if they had any travel plans. It seemed he was trying to figure out when the store would be left with just the owner's wife. When the police arrived at Gein's cabin to investigate, the first thing Gein said upon seeing them was, "If you're here to ask about the hardware store's owner, I truly know nothing." After Gein was arrested for murder, experts came to perform a psychological evaluation on him. Everyone was shocked to find that his mental state had deteriorated to a level that experts could not identify. Moreover, he seemed to have suffered from severe mental illness since childhood. It was only after his mother died that this condition erupted. In other words, Gein suffered from severe hallucinations. What he saw, heard, and even smelled were all illusions. So by Christmas of 1957, this completely disturbed individual was admitted to a hospital. Eventually, Gein died of cancer at the psychiatric hospital on July 26, 1984. His story drew countless curious people to visit his house in that small town. Ultimately, the town's residents could no longer bear their fame from such events and burned Gein's house down. Actually, looking back at Gein's actions, I think the most terrifying aspect was his mother's way of raising him. His mother forbade him from interacting with any women since he was little. His mother's authoritarian education style made Gein both fear and respect her. This led him to completely obey any of her demands. Even her belief that all women are monsters was deeply ingrained in his mind. At the same time, he couldn't suppress his sexual urges. Thus, he developed a pathological and incomprehensible attitude toward women. So, I wonder if, growing up in an extremely isolated environment, restricting interaction with others, would everything have been different for him as an adult? Alright, that's all for this episode. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to my channel.